when a 10-year-old girl named Lily quietly confides in her teacher about a terrifying situation at home. Mr. Challenger almost dismisses it as the usual worries children sometimes exaggerate. But then one chilling detail slips out, something too disturbing to be mere imagination, sending a shock through the entire school and igniting a desperate fight for this child's safety. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. And if you believe in the power of hope, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Mr. Challenger taught 5th grade at Pinewood Elementary. He was known for his warm smile, relentless optimism, and the way he could make even the most reluctant student crack a grin. His classroom walls were filled with vibrant posters of world maps, historical figures, and encouraging quotes in colorful letters. He had chosen this career path because he remembered his own difficult childhood, bouncing through the foster system until he finally settled with a supportive family. Now, his students' well-being mattered to him more than grades or test scores ever could. Every morning, he greeted each child by name, checking in with them to see how they were doing. Still, sometimes he worried that the daily routine might blind him to subtle signs of distress. Lily was new to his class that year. She stood out in some ways. She was quieter than many of her peers, and her big green eyes often seemed to search the room with caution, as though expecting a sudden threat. She wore the same worn-out shoes every day and rarely joined in group games or idle chatter. The other children weren't unkind, but they tended to overlook Lily. She slipped through the day with minimal fuss, scribbling diligently in her notebook, handing in her assignments on time. Her voice was always soft, almost apologetic, as if she feared being too noticeable. Initially, Mr. Challenger assumed Lily was just shy. He'd had plenty of introverted students over the years who needed a little extra encouragement to open up. But soon, he started noticing small signs that suggested deeper troubles. Sometimes Lily would flinch at loud noises, and once, when he raised his arm to write on the whiteboard, she tensed as though afraid he might strike her. It was unsettling, but teachers frequently encountered children with varied backgrounds. He told himself not to jump to conclusions. Yet, as the weeks went by, each subtle signal added up to something he couldn't ignore. One crisp morning, Lily appeared at his desk with her eyes downcast. It was before the official start of the day, when most children were still in the cafeteria or wandering the hall. "Mr. Challenger," she whispered, her voice trembling, "can I tell you something?" He set aside his stack of homework papers, immediately sensing her unease. "Sure, Lily," he replied gently, motioning for her to take a seat. She didn't sit, though. Instead, she stood there twisting her fingers together, eyes darting around like she was terrified someone might overhear. Something bad. At home. My foster parents, She swallowed hard, struggling with the words. "They're not nice to me. And I'm scared." He remembered how his pulse had quickened in that moment, alarm bells ringing in his mind. But he couldn't jump to conclusions just yet. He asked a few cautious questions, and Lily stammered uncertain responses that suggested she was being yelled at, perhaps locked in her room at times. It sounded troubling, but not necessarily enough to involve immediate authorities. Sometimes kids exaggerated conflicts at home. So Mr. Challenger gently thanked her for confiding in him, promising to keep a watchful eye. He told her that if anything got worse, or if she felt unsafe, she should tell him or another trusted adult right away. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes, then hurried off to her desk as other students filtered into the room. Over the next few days, he couldn't stop thinking about her words. There was a tension in Lily's posture, a guarded look that made him uneasy. He consulted Mrs. Harris, the school counselor, who suggested they keep an eye on Lily but not jump to any extreme measures unless they had more substantial evidence. Mr. Challenger understood that false accusations could cause havoc for families, especially foster families who were already subject to scrutiny. Yet, he felt a nagging guilt every time he looked into Lily's anxious gaze. About a week later, Lily came to school wearing a long-sleeved sweater despite the mild weather. During reading time, Mr. Challenger noticed her wincing whenever she moved her right arm. Concerned, he quietly asked her if she was all right. She hesitated, then gave him a shaky nod. He didn't want to press her publicly, so he let it go. But the unsettled feeling in his gut only grew stronger. The next day, Lily arrived with a bruise visible around her wrist, just peeking out where her sleeve couldn't fully conceal it. At that point, Mr. Challenger decided he had to act. He gently took her aside during recess, asking if she'd hurt herself. She avoided his eyes and mumbled, "I fell off my bike," but he sensed it was a lie. That afternoon, he went to Mrs. Harris's office, the small room decorated with motivational posters and a plush couch where students often sat for counseling sessions. He explained what he'd seen: Lily's bruises, her nervous behavior, and the cryptic comments about home. Mrs. Harris listened intently, tapping her pen on a notepad. "It could be something serious," she agreed softly. "We need to speak to Lily more directly, but we must be gentle. If she's being abused, accusing her guardians without proof could backfire. It could force them to hide it more effectively. But we also can't ignore it." They decided to invite Lily to a private talk with the counselor, just to see if she'd open up more. The following day, Lily was quietly summoned to Mrs. Harris's office during English period. Mr. Challenger continued teaching the rest of the class, though his mind strayed to Lily's situation. He hated the thought that one of his students might be suffering under a roof meant to provide safety. Memories of his own childhood flitted through his mind. Memories of living with foster parents who couldn't be bothered to ask how he was doing, who saw him more as a check in the mail than a child in need. He'd been lucky to eventually find a loving family, but those early years left scars. Now, the possibility that Lily was trapped in a painful situation dug at his heart. When Lily returned from the counselor's office, she avoided Mr. Challenger's gaze. He noticed her face was blotchy, as though she'd been crying. That was enough confirmation for him. Something was definitely wrong. After class, Mrs. Harris found him in the hallway, her expression serious. "She wouldn't say much," the counselor murmured. "But she did say she's afraid to go home. She claims it's because her foster parents might punish her for small mistakes, but she wouldn't elaborate. I've made some notes. Let's keep observing her. If we see more signs, we might need to file a report with social services." Mr. Challenger nodded, though he felt they should act sooner. He'd seen too many cases where hesitation led to tragedy. But Mrs. Harris was trained for these situations, so he followed her lead. Over the next week, they discreetly checked Lily's arms and any sign of injury. At first, they noticed nothing new. Then, one morning, Lily arrived with a bandage over her forearm. The official story was she'd burned herself on the oven at home while trying to bake cookies. But her anxious expression told a different story. Enough was enough. After consulting with the principal, Mr. Challenger and Mrs. Harris decided to call social services. Lily's foster parents, Bruno and Andrea Quinn, had been fostering children for about 2 years. On paper, they seemed like any other middle-class couple trying to help kids in need. They lived in a small suburban house with a neat front lawn. They both had stable jobs. Bruno worked in a warehouse, Andrea did part-time retail. They presented themselves as no-nonsense caretakers, believing in discipline and structure. At the news that the school was questioning Lily's bruises, Bruno responded with indignation. "Kids are clumsy," he insisted. "She's always running around, falling off her bike or scraping herself on something. We can't watch her every second." Andrea stood by, nodding in agreement, expressing mild offense that anyone would think they were anything less than caring guardians. But from Lily's increasingly tense demeanor, Mr. Challenger suspected there was more to the story. When social services opened a file on Lily's situation, they assigned a caseworker named Ms. Delgado. A tall woman with calm eyes and a direct manner of speaking, Ms. Delgado visited Pinewood Elementary to speak with Lily. She also interviewed Bruno and Andrea. At first, Lily, terrified of retaliation, downplayed her situation. Ms. Delgado left with inconclusive impressions, but she wasn't dismissing the concerns. "We'll keep an eye on this family," she told Mrs. Harris. "I'll schedule follow-up visits. Sometimes these things take time to uncover." Time was precisely what worried Mr. Challenger. Each passing day could mean more harm for Lily if their suspicions were correct. He resolved to pay closer attention to her daily condition. He noticed she often skipped lunch or ate very little. Could it be that her foster parents were withholding food, or that she was too anxious to eat? She also avoided eye contact when he tried to ask if everything was okay at home. "Yes, everything's fine," she would murmur, voice trembling. Then, one Friday afternoon, Lily lingered in the classroom after the final bell. While other students rushed out for the weekend, she hovered by his desk, fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. He looked up and saw fear in her eyes. "Mr. Challenger," she whispered, "I don't want to go home. Please, can I stay here longer?" His heart dropped. "Why don't you want to go home, Lily?" She swallowed, tears threatening to fall. "I did bad on a test. Andrea says I'm worthless if I don't do well. She might get angry." He gently touched her shoulder, feeling her flinch under his hand. "It's okay," he said softly. "You did your best. But Lily, are they hurting you physically?" She squeezed her eyes shut, a tear slipping down her cheek, and she nodded. That was all he needed to hear. Though the building was nearly empty, he took her to the principal's office, where Mrs. Harris was still finishing some paperwork. Lily was shaking, so he sat next to her, offering soothing words while Mrs. Harris asked gently probing questions. Lily admitted that Bruno would hit her with a belt when she failed to meet their expectations, like chores or school grades. Andrea would lock her in a closet for hours if she was caught doing anything they considered disobedient. Lily's lips quivered when she described being forced to kneel on a wooden floor for extended periods as punishment for talking back. She also implied there might have been other forms of humiliation. By the time Lily finished her reluctant confession, Mr. Challenger felt physically ill. He tried to keep his expression calm for Lily's sake, but inside he was seething. He and Mrs. Harris exchanged grim looks, aware this needed immediate action. The principal was called in. Ms. Delgado was contacted again, but it was after business hours, so they had to leave an urgent message on her work phone. Meanwhile, Lily sobbed, terrified that her foster parents would find out she'd told. Mr. Challenger knelt beside her, promising they wouldn't send her back that night. But he knew they were bound by certain protocols. The principal eventually reached a higher-up in social services who agreed Lily couldn't be returned to that home until an investigation could be launched. The immediate solution was to temporarily place Lily in an emergency children's shelter. Mr. Challenger felt a pang of guilt. He wanted to ensure she went somewhere safe, but he also recalled how frightening a shelter could be for a child. Still, it was better than returning her to alleged abusers. That evening, Lily was quietly escorted to the shelter, accompanied by a social worker who arrived after hours. Mr. Challenger went home feeling a mix of relief and dread. Relief that Lily was out of harm's way for at least one night, dread about what might happen if the Quinns fought to get her back, or if the system required proof of abuse beyond her bruises and testimony. He tossed and turned, memories of his own foster experiences flooding his dreams, swirling with images of Lily's tear-stained face. Over the weekend, Ms. Delgado began her investigation in earnest. She visited the Quinns' house, asked questions, observed the living space. Bruno and Andrea presented a tidy home, insisted they'd never harm Lily. They claimed she was prone to lying, seeking attention. Ms. Delgado took notes, but she refused to let Lily return until more facts were uncovered. She told them that, for now, Lily was in protective custody. The Quinns were furious, threatening legal action. Meanwhile, Lily spent those days at the shelter, anxious and withdrawn. On Monday, Lily didn't come to school. She was still in protective care. Ms. Delgado came by to interview Mr. Challenger, Mrs. Harris, and the principal. She wanted every detail. When they first noticed Lily's distress, the nature of her bruises, Lily's exact words. Mr. Challenger tried to stay composed, but he felt a swirl of anger recalling the manipulations foster parents sometimes used to hide abuse. Ms. Delgado was sympathetic but reminded them that the legal process required meticulous documentation. "We need Lily to speak on the record to a child protection advocate," Ms. Delgado explained. "We also need a medical exam to confirm the injuries. If that lines up with her story, we have grounds to terminate the Quinns' foster care license and press charges for child abuse." By midweek, Lily was medically examined, and the bruises, along with some older scars, raised serious red flags. She was assigned a child advocate, someone specially trained to interview her without causing further trauma. Over several sessions, Lily opened up about the physical punishments, the emotional torment, the nights spent locked in small spaces. She also spoke about how Bruno would threaten her, saying she'd be thrown out on the street if she told anyone. Lily's testimony was heartbreaking and terrifying, but it was also the key to ensuring she wouldn't be returned to that environment. With these revelations, Ms. Delgado filed a petition to remove Lily from the Quinns' custody permanently. Criminal charges were considered, though that would require the police to gather sufficient evidence. Andrea and Bruno, upon hearing that Lily had lied about them, denied everything and insisted they'd never touched her. But the mountain of evidence was growing. Soon, neighbors came forward to mention they'd occasionally heard loud shouting from inside the Quinns' home, though none had suspected actual violence. Throughout this process, Lily remained at the shelter. She was allowed to come to school, but her days were overshadowed by confusion and fear about her future. She no longer had a place to call home. Sometimes, she'd arrive at Mr. Challenger's classroom in the morning, eyes rimmed with tears, seeking reassurance. He offered her gentle smiles, told her how strong she was, how proud he was of her courage. She would nod, though doubt lingered in her expression. One afternoon, after classes ended, Lily stayed behind with Mr. Challenger, helping him tidy up the books on the shelves. She was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. "Am I ever going to have a real family?" Her voice trembled as she arranged the spines of the textbooks in neat rows. Mr. Challenger felt a pang of empathy so strong it made his throat tighten. "Lily," he began softly, "I believe you will. You deserve a family that loves you and never hurts you. It might take time, but the system will find a better place for you." She swallowed. "I don't want to go back to them," she whispered, tears gathering. "But I don't want to be alone." He knelt beside her, gently laying a hand on her arm. "You're not alone," he said firmly. "You've got me, Mrs. Harris, Ms. Delgado. We all care about you." She sniffled, nodding, but she looked unconvinced. He understood. So many children in foster care ended up shuffled from one temporary home to another, sometimes landing in places just as bad as the last. It was a broken system. The conversation left him restless. That night, he found himself pacing his small apartment, thinking about Lily, recalling his own childhood heartbreak. He remembered the moment a teacher had stepped in to protect him, advocating for a better placement. Changed his life. Now, he felt an echo of that responsibility toward Lily. As the weeks passed, the legal wheels turned slowly. Bruno and Andrea tried to paint Lily as a troubled child who lied for attention, but the evidence of physical harm was irrefutable. The family court set a hearing date to decide Lily's permanent placement. In the interim, Lily would remain in the shelter or possibly be placed with another temporary foster family. Ms. Delgado was looking for a more suitable arrangement, but the foster system was stretched thin, with many children in need of safe homes. Meanwhile, Mr. Challenger and Lily's teachers noticed a new sadness in her eyes, as though the fight had drained her spirit. Even her classmates sensed her distance. A group of kind-hearted girls tried to include her in their lunchtime activities, but Lily often stared at her tray, barely touching her food. Art class became her only refuge, where she'd draw softly lit scenes of houses with warm windows, images of families hugging. The art teacher praised her sketches, urging her to enter a local children's art contest. But Lily was too shy to volunteer. That shift in her drawings, from dark scribbles to tentative scenes of hope, caught Mr. Challenger's attention. Perhaps it was a sign that she still longed for better days. One Friday, after Ms. Delgado gave an update about the upcoming court hearing, Lily approached Mr. Challenger again, this time with tears threatening to spill. "What if the judge sends me back to them?" she asked, voice quivering. I don't think I can handle it again. They'll be even angrier." He crouched so their eyes were level. "Hey, the judge will see the evidence," he reassured her. "We won't let them take you back. You told the truth, and the bruises prove it." Bruno and Andrea lost their right to foster you the minute they hurt you. Lily nodded, but her hands trembled, betraying her fear. I'm so scared, she whispered. I don't know if I can tell the judge everything. What if he doesn't believe me? His heart ached for her. He will, Mr. Challenger said softly. And even if it's hard, you've got all of us backing you up. I promise I'll be there if you need me. She managed a small, grateful smile. That night, Mr. Challenger realized with greater clarity than ever that Lily needed not just a new home, but a real champion. Someone who understood the system from the inside. He found himself thinking about the possibility of fostering her himself, or even adopting her. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. He was a single man, living in a modest apartment, with a stable but not extravagant teacher's salary. Would the agency even consider him? Could he navigate the complexities of becoming her guardian? He wrestled with these questions for days, confiding in Mrs. Harris about his thoughts. The counselor was supportive but cautioned him to carefully consider the responsibility. Being a foster parent is a huge step, she said gently. You know that better than anyone, from your own experiences. But Lily does trust you, and if you're truly ready, it could be the best thing for her. Encouraged, he decided to speak with Ms. Delgado about the possibility. When he broached the subject, Ms. Delgado raised her eyebrows in surprise. I didn't realize you were considering this, she said thoughtfully. We'd have to run a thorough background check, assess your living situation. The agency might be cautious about placing a child with a teacher from the same school, just to avoid potential conflicts. But it's not unheard of. Mr. Challenger felt both nervous and determined. I just want to give her a safe place, he said simply. Ms. Delgado nodded. In that case, we'll start the paperwork. But you must be prepared for questions about finances, support systems, your personal life. It's a process, and the decision ultimately rests with the court as well. As Lily's court hearing approached, tensions rose. The Quinns, facing possible charges, hired a lawyer who tried to discredit Lily's statements, pointing to her quiet and introverted nature as evidence she was emotionally disturbed and prone to fabrication. They tried to frame the bruises as childhood accidents, but the medical records contradicted that narrative. Some injuries were consistent with belt lashes, not simple falls. Ms. Delgado gathered testimonies from teachers, neighbors, and the school nurse who'd once noted suspicious marks on Lily. All of it painted a grim picture of abuse. On the morning of the hearing, Lily arrived at the courthouse with Ms. Delgado. Her eyes darted nervously at the looming building. She'd never been to a courtroom before, and the solemn atmosphere made her fidgety. Ms. Delgado guided her inside, where Mr. Challenger and Mrs. Harris were already waiting to support her. Lily gave them a trembling smile of recognition. Then, with a burst of fear, she spotted Bruno and Andrea standing by their lawyer. Bruno's glare was cold, and Andrea's face was tight with anger. Lily shrank back. I can't do this, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Mr. Challenger knelt beside her. Yes, you can, he said softly. And I'll be here. Mrs. Harris is here. It'll be okay. Inside the courtroom, the judge was a middle-aged woman with compassionate but firm eyes. The attorneys stated their cases, and Ms. Delgado presented evidence of Lily's physical injuries and testimonies about her emotional distress. The Quinns' lawyer tried to cast doubt on Lily's credibility, but the judge's gaze fell on Lily, seeing the real fear etched on her face. The moment Lily stood to speak, her small voice wavering, the tension in the room was palpable. She recounted, in halting phrases, how Bruno would strike her with a belt and how Andrea would lock her in a closet. She cried quietly, describing nights she was too afraid to sleep, worried that the slightest mistake would bring punishment. When she finished, the judge asked a few gentle questions. Lily answered as best she could, leaning on Ms. Delgado's reassuring nod. The judge's expression grew resolute. She declared that Lily would not be returning to the Quinns, who were unfit to serve as her guardians. The relief that washed over Lily was visible in the slump of her shoulders, the tears streaming down her cheeks. Bruno and Andrea looked furious. Their lawyer tried to protest, but the judge held up a hand. "The evidence is sufficient for me to conclude that this child has been subjected to abuse," she said firmly. "I'm terminating your foster care arrangement. Further action regarding criminal charges will be at the discretion of the district attorney." The Quinns were escorted out, leaving Lily trembling in the aftermath. Ms. Delgado hugged her softly. Mr. Challenger stood by, heart pounding with mixed emotions. Anger at what Lily had endured, gratitude that justice had been served. The next step was to determine Lily's new placement. Ms. Delgado explained that typically, Lily might be moved to another foster home, but the agency was overwhelmed, and they wanted to ensure Lily received proper care from someone she trusted. It was then that Mr. Challenger cleared his throat and told the judge, with a shaky voice, that he was willing to foster Lily if the court approved. The judge looked at him, eyebrows slightly raised. "You're her teacher, correct?" she asked. Mr. Challenger nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I have a personal background in foster care. I know how the system works. Lily trusts me. If you'll let me, I want to provide her with a safe home. I understand the responsibilities." Ms. Delgado vouched for him, mentioning she'd already begun the preliminary background check. The judge seemed thoughtful. "We usually prefer not to place a child with someone from their school to avoid any conflicts of interest, but given the circumstances, and if Ms. Delgado's assessment is favorable, I'm open to considering it. For now, we'll proceed with a transitional order, meaning Lily can stay with Mr. Challenger under close monitoring. We'll reevaluate in a few months." Tears of relief welled up in Lily's eyes. She glanced at Mr. Challenger with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. He offered a small, reassuring smile. The hearing ended with the Quinns storming out, their lawyer trailing behind, while Lily was guided out by Ms. Delgado and Mr. Challenger. In the hallway, Lily clung to Mr. Challenger's arm. "Is this real?" she whispered. "I'm not going back to them?" He gently patted her shoulder. "You're safe now," he murmured. "You're coming home with me, at least for a little while." Over the next few days, Mr. Challenger hurriedly made arrangements in his modest apartment. He cleared out his small spare room, which had been more of a storage space, turning it into a bedroom for Lily. He scoured thrift stores for suitable furniture, picking out a bed with a simple frame, a dresser, and a desk so she could do her homework. He even tacked up a couple of cheerful posters, a sunrise over mountains and a playful cat, to make the space feel welcoming. Lily watched with shy wonder as her new guardian fussed over every detail, wanting to make sure she felt at home. "It's not fancy," he said apologetically, "but it's yours. You can decorate it however you like." She gave him a small smile, the first genuine one he'd seen from her in a while. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one's ever made a room just for me before." He choked back a surge of emotion, recalling how it felt to have his own space for the first time as a foster kid. Over the following weeks, Lily settled into a routine at Mr. Challenger's place. She woke early for school, and they walked together, though he reminded her to call him Mr. Challenger in class to maintain some semblance of normalcy for the other students. After school, she'd come home to a quiet apartment. Often, he wasn't back yet due to meetings or tutoring sessions, but she felt safe there. He left snacks in the fridge and a phone number to call if she ever felt scared. Mrs. Harris arranged for Lily to continue therapy sessions with a counselor who specialized in helping abused children. Lily resisted at first, but after a few visits, she opened up about her fears, her nightmares, the shame she felt for being weak. The counselor reassured her that none of it was her fault, that children rely on adults to protect them. Meanwhile, Ms. Delgado checked in regularly, dropping by the apartment to observe the environment. She saw a gentle, supportive bond forming between Lily and Mr. Challenger. The girl still had moments of anxiety. If he accidentally raised his voice, or moved too quickly near her, she'd flinch. But day by day, she was learning to trust. One evening, they sat at the small kitchen table, finishing dinner. Lily poked at her peas, and Mr. Challenger asked how she liked living there so far. She shrugged, then mustered a soft smile. "It's nice. I never worry about someone yelling at me or hitting me." He nodded, struggling to contain the wave of sorrow that threatened to surface every time he thought about what she'd endured. You should never have had to worry about that in the first place, he said gently. Then, hesitantly, he asked, what do you think about living here permanently? Her eyes widened. Do you mean like, you'd adopt me? He held her gaze. If that's something you want, and if the system allows it, I'd be honored to give you a forever home. Tears glistened in her eyes, but she looked away, uncertain. I'd like that, she whispered. I'm afraid things could change. He reached across the table to give her hand a reassuring squeeze. I won't change how I feel, he promised. But I understand it'll take time for you to believe that. She nodded, blinking back tears. From that moment on, an unspoken understanding passed between them. He wasn't just a teacher or a temporary guardian, but potentially the father figure she'd been missing. Meanwhile, Ms. Delgado explained that official adoption would require extensive paperwork, a thorough home study, and a judge's final approval. But given Lily's age and the lack of other suitable relatives stepping forward, there was a decent chance it could happen. Lily's mother had died when she was very young, her father was unknown, and no extended family had emerged to claim custody. The Quinns had been her third foster placement. She was exhausted by the system's churn. At school, Lily's demeanor gradually brightened. She participated a bit more in group activities, occasionally sharing a quiet laugh with classmates. Mr. Challenger maintained professional boundaries in class. He didn't give her special treatment or public affection, but all the kids knew he cared about each one of them. They understood Lily was living with him, though the details were hazy to them. She sometimes faced curious questions from her peers, but mostly, they accepted it without fuss. One day, the art teacher approached Mr. Challenger with a beaming smile. She showed him a drawing Lily had done. A small apartment living room with two people, obviously Lily and Mr. Challenger, sitting on a couch. Above them was a giant heart, and in Lily's loopy handwriting, she'd scrawled home. The drawing was simple but powerful. She wanted me to show you, the art teacher said softly. She's come a long way since her first days here. Mr. Challenger stared at the picture, heart full. He felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to ensure Lily never lost that feeling of safety. But healing was not a smooth, linear path. Some nights, Lily woke from nightmares, sweating and crying out for help. He'd rush into her room, rub her back, and speak softly until she realized she was safe. She often apologized, as though the nightmares were her fault. He assured her repeatedly that it was okay, that trauma didn't vanish overnight. In the daytime, she sometimes had bouts of sadness, memories triggered by seemingly small things. A certain smell, a harsh tone from a teacher. She would withdraw for hours at a time. Bit by bit, though, with the counselor's guidance and the supportive environment, her confidence began to bloom. As time passed, Ms. Delgado completed the home study. She verified Mr. Challenger's finances, interviewed neighbors about his character, confirmed references. He felt uneasy at times. It was invasive to have someone comb through every aspect of his life, but he knew it was necessary. Lily deserved the best, and the system needed to be sure he was qualified. Eventually, Ms. Delgado presented her findings to the court, recommending that Lily remain in Mr. Challenger's care, with an eye toward permanent adoption if all continued well. Around this time, news broke that Bruno and Andrea Quinn might face criminal charges for child abuse, specifically regarding Lily. They were also being investigated for potential mistreatment of other foster kids who had passed through their home, though none had come forward yet. Lily felt a swirl of conflicting emotions, fear of seeing them again, anger at the memory of their cruelty, relief that they might be held accountable. When the trial date was set, the prosecutor contacted Lily's advocates, stating that her testimony would be crucial. Lily was terrified at the thought of speaking in court again, especially about the horrors she'd endured. But she also realized that her words might protect other children from suffering the same fate. She prepared with the help of a victim advocate, practicing how to stay calm on the stand, how to respond to cross-examination. Mr. Challenger, though he wanted to shield her from the trauma, recognized the importance of letting her voice be heard. The day of the trial, Lily appeared braver than anyone expected. She trembled slightly as she took the stand, but she spoke clearly about the beatings, the time spent locked in dark closets, the demeaning words that still echoed in her mind. Bruno and Andrea, sitting across the courtroom, tried to glare at her, but Lily kept her gaze focused on the prosecutor. When cross-examined, she didn't falter. She repeated her story, unwavering, every detail consistent with the evidence. Her courage was evident to everyone present. When the jury returned a guilty verdict, Lily breathed out a sob of relief, tears streaming. Bruno and Andrea's faces fell, a mixture of rage and disbelief. They were taken into custody, facing sentencing. Lily left the courtroom feeling lighter, though the weight of those memories would never fully vanish. Outside, Ms. Delgado, the prosecutor, and Mr. Challenger offered her heartfelt congratulations for her bravery. Lily clung to Mr. Challenger's side, unsure if she was supposed to feel happy or just exhausted. She asked in a small voice, "Does this mean it's over?" He nodded gently. "As far as those two are concerned, yes," he said. "They won't hurt anyone else anymore." Over the next few weeks, the adoption process moved forward. Lily still experienced emotional ups and downs, but the knowledge that her abusers were behind bars helped her feel safer. The judge handling her case requested a final hearing to confirm that Mr. Challenger was truly equipped to adopt her. On the day of that hearing, Lily wore a simple dress, her hair in a neat ponytail. She held Mr. Challenger's hand, her nerves evident in her tense posture. He gave her a reassuring squeeze as they entered the familiar courthouse. The judge listened to Ms. Delgado's report. Lily had improved in school, had formed friendships, and showed signs of healing under Mr. Challenger's care. The home study had no red flags. The judge also read statements from Mrs. Harris, praising Lily's progress and Mr. Challenger's unwavering dedication. Finally, the judge asked Lily if she wanted this arrangement. She nodded shyly, tears in her eyes, and said, "Yes, Your Honor. I want to stay with Mr. Challenger. He makes me feel safe, like I matter." With that, the judge smiled, declared the adoption approved, and banged the gavel. Lily was no longer a foster child, but a daughter in the eyes of the law. A wave of emotion swept through Mr. Challenger. Tears sprang unbidden to his eyes. Lily, wiping her own cheeks, managed a tremulous grin. Ms. Delgado congratulated them warmly. The weight of officialdom lifted, replaced by a joyous sense of permanence. Mr. Challenger realized Lily was now Lily Challenger, his child in every legal sense. Felt surreal but right. On the way out of the courtroom, Lily clung to his arm and whispered, "I have a dad now." He gently rested his hand on her back. "Yes, sweetheart, you do," he murmured, barely able to speak through the lump in his throat. The transformation in Lily over the next few months was remarkable. Freed from the looming threat of returning to the Quins, she grew more confident at school. In class, Mr. Challenger would see her smile at a friend's joke, volunteer to read aloud, or excitedly share a piece of creative writing. She discovered a particular passion for painting, often coming home with her hands smudged in bright colors from the art room. Mr. Challenger encouraged her creative pursuits, even setting up a small art station in their apartment's living room. She'd spend hours painting scenes of nature, animals, or sometimes abstract swirls of color that reflected her mood. One day, she showed him a painting she'd worked on all week. A picture of a modest apartment living room with two figures, one tall, one smaller, sitting together, both smiling. In the corner, there was a glow from a lamp, casting a warm light. She'd labeled it "My Safe Place." He blinked back tears, praising her skill. She beamed with pride, clearly cherishing this new sense of belonging. They had their challenges, of course. Lily's nightmares lingered, though they became less frequent. Sometimes she'd startle if Mr. Challenger spoke too loudly or made a sudden movement. She had to learn that mistakes wouldn't lead to harsh punishment, that it was okay to spill juice or break a dish without fearing physical consequences. Whenever such accidents happened, she'd go pale, trembling, but Mr. Challenger would kneel down calmly, showing her it was no big deal, that accidents were part of life. Over time, these moments helped rewire her instincts. The tension in her posture gradually melted away, replaced by cautious but growing trust. Mrs. Harris continued meeting with Lily periodically, just to check in. The counselor saw remarkable growth in Lily's self-esteem, noting how important stable, loving guardianship was for healing. For Mr. Challenger, balancing single parenthood with teaching duties was no small feat. He found himself waking earlier to prepare Lily's breakfast, staying up later to help with her homework or comfort her if she had a rough night. It was exhausting, but never once did he regret his decision. Watching Lily flourish was worth every moment of lost sleep. Eventually, Lily's adoption was celebrated at the school in a small way. At a year-end assembly, the principal discreetly mentioned how proud they were of students who overcame challenges, giving Lily a special nod. She received quiet applause from her peers, who knew enough about her journey to respect her perseverance. Mr. Challenger looked on with pride, clapping along with the rest. That summer, father and daughter spent more time together, taking small road trips to nearby state parks. Lily marveled at waterfalls, snapped photos of wildlife, and filled sketchbooks with new inspirations. She admitted that she'd never gone on trips with her previous foster families. Any outings were strictly controlled or overshadowed by fear. Now, as she roasted marshmallows with Mr. Challenger by a campsite, she giggled at a squirrel trying to steal crumbs from their picnic table. He smiled, warmed by her laughter, so different from the frightened child who first approached him in the hallway months ago. Back at home, Ms. Delgado remained a supportive presence, dropping by occasionally to see how Lily was adjusting. She marveled at Lily's progress, noting how resilient children could be when given love and stability. The formalities of adoption behind them, it felt like life was settling into normalcy. Lily even brought up the idea of adding a pet to their home. Mr. Challenger hesitated, aware of the responsibility, but eventually agreed they could get a cat from a local shelter. Lily fell in love with a small gray kitten, which she named Misty. Watching Lily gently cradle Misty in her arms, laughing when the kitten batted at yarn, made Mr. Challenger's heart swell with joy. Another layer of healing. One evening, Lily shyly asked about Mr. Challenger's own childhood, curious to know how he'd ended up in foster care. He hadn't shared much, not wanting to overshadow her experiences. But now he felt it was time. They sat on the couch, Misty curled on Lily's lap. He explained how his parents died in a car accident when he was young, leaving him to bounce between relatives who couldn't care for him. Eventually, the state placed him in various foster homes, some decent, others less so, until he found a couple who treated him like a son. Their kindness planted the seed for him to become a teacher, to help other kids like him. Lily listened intently, occasionally wiping her eyes, understanding a deeper bond they shared. Both of them had been lost in the system, craving a forever home. As Lily advanced to the next grade, she was no longer in Mr. Challenger's class, but they remained father and daughter at home. She started making more friends, joining the art club, even performing in a small school talent show where she read a poem she wrote about finding light in the darkness. The audience applauded thunderously, and Mr. Challenger, sitting in the front row, had to discreetly dab at his eyes with a tissue. Mrs. Harris, seated beside him, patted his shoulder, sharing the moment of pride. Throughout that year, Lily occasionally had to revisit old wounds, like when the news reported on the Quinn sentencing. They both received jail time for child abuse and neglect. Lily heard about it from Ms. Delgado, who believed in transparency. Lily processed it with a mixture of relief and sadness, still grappling with how adults who were supposed to protect her could have been so cruel. But this time, she faced it with the knowledge that it was truly behind her, that she had a real family now. Mr. Challenger reminded her that she wasn't defined by their actions, that her worth was far beyond what they'd led her to believe. Slowly, Lily learned to love herself. She discovered she was good at more than art. Her new teacher praised her improvement in math, and she discovered a penchant for understanding fractions and geometry. Her once quiet exterior sometimes gave way to bursts of excitement, like when she ran home to show Mr. Challenger a perfect score on a spelling test. Each success built on the last, reinforcing her sense of capability. One Sunday afternoon, as they lounged on the living room rug playing a board game, Lily looked up and said, "You know what? I want to be an art teacher someday, like Ms. Lambert. I want to help kids who feel sad. Mr. Challenger beamed. That's a wonderful idea, he said, stacking the game pieces. You'd be amazing at it. You have a way of making people feel at ease. She blushed happily, hugging Misty, who purred in her lap. Then she added, maybe I can make art programs for foster kids. They should have ways to express themselves. He nodded, impressed by her empathy. You have a big heart, Lily. I believe you can do anything you set your mind to. Seasons changed, and each holiday became a new tradition for them. Halloween was spent carving pumpkins and handing out candy to neighborhood kids. At Thanksgiving, they volunteered at a local soup kitchen, Lily shyly ladling gravy under the guidance of an older volunteer. Christmas brought a small tree in their living room, ornaments that Lily crafted by hand, paper snowflakes and little drawings of cats and stars. On Christmas morning, Mr. Challenger gave her a set of premium art supplies, paints, brushes, and a sketch pad. She squealed with delight, hugging him so tight he thought he might burst with happiness. He realized this was what he'd always hoped to achieve as a teacher, giving a child not just an education, but a sense of being truly loved. Occasionally, the swirl of daily life would remind them how precarious Lily's journey had been. A letter from social services might arrive, asking for a routine check-in, or Ms. Delgado would stop by. But these visits turned into friendly chats more than formal inspections. Lily showcased her artwork proudly, discussing her plans for middle school. Ms. Delgado often left with a smile, remarking on how far Lily had come. It's amazing what a stable, caring environment can do, she said one afternoon. As Lily approached her 12th birthday, she timidly asked if she could have a small party. Of course, Mr. Challenger said, thrilled to see her enthusiastic about celebrating. In the past, birthdays had brought her anxiety. Would her foster parents be angry about her wanting a cake or gifts? But now, she was free to embrace the joy of the day. They invited a few close friends from school, along with Mrs. Harris and Ms. Lambert, the art teacher. Decorations were minimal but cheerful, with balloons taped around the living room and a homemade banner that said, "Happy birthday, Lily." She spent hours baking cupcakes with Mr. Challenger, giggling when flour puffed out of the mixing bowl. On the day of the party, Lily's friends arrived, bringing little presents and lots of chatter. She wore a bright pink shirt, a big grin never leaving her face. They played games, listened to music, and devoured cupcakes. At one point, Mrs. Harris observed Lily from across the room, then walked over to Mr. Challenger, whispering, "Look at her. She's radiant." He nodded, swallowing a lump of emotion. "She's a different person now," he said softly. "Or maybe it's just that we can finally see who she really is, without fear." Toward the end of the party, Lily gathered the nerve to open her gifts in front of everyone. She unwrapped a small art set from a friend, a fluffy stuffed cat from Mrs. Harris, and an inspirational quote poster from Ms. Lambert. Finally, Mr. Challenger presented his gift, a simple necklace with a small charm shaped like a paintbrush. "For my budding artist," he said, smiling. Lily's eyes brimmed with tears. She hugged him, wordlessly conveying her gratitude. Everyone clapped, the moment filled with warmth. Later that night, when the guests were gone, Lily told Mr. Challenger it was the best day of her life. The months that followed were filled with routine ups and downs of adolescence. Lily navigated friendships, occasional squabbles, homework stress, and the joys of discovering new interests. She joined the after-school art club, where she honed her skills and even helped mentor younger kids. Her nightmares grew infrequent, though sometimes a trigger would prompt a wave of anxiety, and she'd need reassurance that no one would hurt her again. Always, Mr. Challenger was there with a calm voice and an embrace if she needed it. Misty, ever playful, seemed to sense Lily's moods, curling up beside her when she was blue. As Lily's confidence grew, she found her voice in the classroom. She volunteered answers, debated politely with classmates, even joined a group presentation about endangered animals. When she spoke about caring for vulnerable creatures, her passion shone through, prompting her teacher to remark that Lily had a natural empathy for the underdog. She blushed at the compliment, but Mr. Challenger, who attended her presentation, couldn't have been prouder. He remembered the terrified child who could barely speak above a whisper. Now she was blossoming in front of his eyes. Periodically, Lily asked about her mother, who she'd barely known. She wondered if there were any photos or memories. Mr. Challenger did his best to find bits of information from the agency, but details were scarce. Lily handled the uncertainty with remarkable maturity, focusing on the present rather than the family she never got to fully experience. She once said, "I guess I've learned that family isn't just who you're born to. Can be who cares for you. I'm okay with that." Her insight left Mr. Challenger simultaneously amazed and heartbroken that she'd had to learn such a truth so young. By the time Lily turned 13, the memory of Bruno and Andrea Quinn was a distant shadow, overshadowed by new experiences, friendships, and achievements. The day she officially changed her last name to Challenger, she left the clerk's office holding the paperwork, a triumphant grin on her face. "I really am a Challenger now," she teased, and Mr. Challenger laughed at the pun. They went out for ice cream to celebrate, Lily sampling different flavors until she decided on mint chocolate chip. She was becoming a typical teenager, discovering her preferences, forging her identity. One day, Ms. Delgado stopped by for what would be her last official check-in regarding Lily's adoption case. Everything was final, stable, uncontroversial. She said with a smile, "I think my job here is done. Lily's thriving, and you two have built a wonderful life together." Lily thanked Ms. Delgado, recalling the early days of fear and uncertainty. Ms. Delgado's calm presence had been pivotal. As she left, the social worker remarked, "You've proven that every child deserves a real shot at happiness." Lily nodded, hugging Ms. Delgado goodbye. Mr. Challenger felt a warm sense of closure. The system's oversight had ended, leaving them to continue their life as a family, unburdened by official scrutiny. With that chapter closed, Lily refocused on her passions: art, writing, friendships. She found a particular thrill in painting murals, occasionally helping Ms. Lambert with school projects that brightened the cafeteria walls. She also began volunteering at an animal shelter on weekends, petting the rescued cats and dogs, showing them the gentle care she once lacked. It was her way of giving back, channeling empathy into action. She told Mr. Challenger that each creature deserved to feel safe and loved, the same way she'd felt when he opened his home to her. Looking at Lily's growth, Mr. Challenger couldn't help but reflect on his own journey. He'd once been a foster kid, uncertain about the future, waiting for a stable home. He became a teacher to help children find a spark of hope. Now he was the father to a bright, caring teenager who had survived unimaginable hardships. Their bond was no longer just teacher and student, but a family forged by resilience and love. He found himself humming when he cooked dinner, smiling randomly at the memory of Lily's laughter. Whenever he caught her engrossed in her art, or curled up reading on the couch, he felt a rush of gratitude for the winding path that brought her into his life. Eventually, Lily reached 8th grade, and with it came typical middle school dramas, crushes, friend group squabbles, the awkwardness of growing up. She sometimes came home frustrated by gossip or heartbreak. Mr. Challenger offered a sympathetic ear, but let her handle social challenges on her own, trusting her newfound confidence. She began journaling her feelings, incorporating them into poetry and sketches. Ms. Lambert encouraged her to enter a statewide art contest for middle schoolers, and Lily hesitated at first, worried about rejection. But with gentle nudging from both her father and her teacher, she submitted a portfolio of her favorite pieces. When she received news that she'd made it to the final round, she shrieked in delight, dancing around the living room with Misty at her heels. Mr. Challenger high-fived her, proud beyond measure. On the day of the judging, they traveled to a local art museum where entries from children across the state were on display. Lily wore a simple dress, her hair in braids. She was nervous, chewing her lip as they waited for the results. Then, a judge announced that Lily Challenger had won 3rd place for her emotive painting titled Finding Home. Applause echoed through the hall as Lily, beaming, received a small trophy and a gift certificate for art supplies. Mr. Challenger snapped photos, tearful with joy. That evening, they placed the trophy on a shelf in the living room. Lily stared at it for a long moment, then asked, "Do you think I'm allowed to be this happy?" He put an arm around her. "Yes," he replied softly. "You've earned it 100 times over." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "For a while, I thought I'd never be happy again. I thought I'd always be scared." She turned to him, hugging him tightly. "Thank you for saving me, Mr. Challenger." Dad. The word dad still held a special warmth each time she used it. He felt a lump in his throat. "You saved yourself too," he murmured. "By speaking up. By being brave. I'm just glad I could be here for you." As Lily prepared for high school, Mr. Challenger recognized how far she'd come. She was no longer the timid child who shrank at every loud noise. Her spirit shone, her wits sparked in conversation, and her smile became more frequent. She had best friends who came over for sleepovers, giggling over silly jokes and music. She had teachers who praised her intelligence and creativity. And she had a father who cherished her unconditionally. One day, Lily found the courage to visit the old children's shelter she'd stayed in briefly, wanting to donate some of her art supplies for the kids who were currently there. Mr. Challenger accompanied her. She met a few younger children huddled around a TV, their eyes dull with the same fear she once knew. She gently handed out colored pencils and sketchbooks, showing them how to blend colors. A little boy asked if she'd teach him to draw a dinosaur, and Lily happily obliged. Watching her kneel beside him, guiding his hand, Mr. Challenger felt tears prick his eyes. She was paying forward the kindness that changed her life, determined to spark hope in others still waiting for rescue. Walking back to the car, Lily spoke in a hushed tone. "That place reminds me of how hopeless I felt," she said. "But maybe, if they have art or someone who cares, they won't feel so alone." Mr. Challenger put an arm around her shoulders. "You're making a difference already," he affirmed. She gazed at him with gratitude and determination. "Someday I want to help foster kids in a big way, maybe start a nonprofit for art therapy or something, so nobody has to feel like they're stuck in the dark." He squeezed her shoulder. "Knowing you, Lily, I'm sure you'll make that happen." Time flew by. Lily became a high school freshman, brimming with curiosity and ambition. She joined the art club, made new friends, tackled challenging coursework. At home, she and Mr. Challenger teased each other about chores, debated which TV shows to watch, and occasionally bickered over curfew times. Typical father-teen life. She still visited Mrs. Harris occasionally for mentorship and kept in touch with Ms. Delgado, who was thrilled at Lily's progress. Bruno and Andrea were a distant memory, locked away, no longer casting a shadow on Lily's present. Throughout her high school years, Lily's love for art grew more sophisticated. She experimented with different mediums: acrylics, watercolors, charcoal. Some nights, she'd be up late, painting while music played softly in her room. Mr. Challenger had to enforce bedtime, reminding her she needed enough sleep for school. She'd grin sheepishly, nodding. One more brush stroke, she'd plead, and he'd chuckle. Misty the cat would watch from a corner, tail swishing contentedly. As Lily matured, she occasionally revisited her traumatic past with a calmer perspective. Therapy helped her see how far she'd come, and she used her experiences to empathize with classmates who faced struggles. She became known as someone who would listen without judgment, offering a quiet word of encouragement. Once, she even helped a friend speak to a school counselor about issues at home. "You taught me not to stay silent," Lily explained to Mr. Challenger when he praised her. He felt immense pride, witnessing how her pain had transformed into empathy and strength. And so the seasons passed. Lily grew taller, her features sharpening with adolescence. She started planning for college, dreaming of studying art education or social work, uncertain yet but excited to explore. Mr. Challenger supported every dream, promising to help however he could. He attended every art show, every school event, cheering from the sidelines. She thrived on that unwavering love, grateful for the second chance life had given her. Eventually, Lily reached her senior year in high school. She was no longer the shy, bruised child who'd first confided in Mr. Challenger. Now, she was a young adult on the cusp of independence. Applications to art programs beckoned, portfolio reviews loomed, and she faced the bittersweet reality of leaving the nest. One autumn evening, she showed Mr. Challenger a list of colleges she was considering. He scanned them, noting some were out of state. A pang of sadness flickered within him, but he pushed it down, determined to support her. "These are great choices," he said earnestly. "I'm proud of you for aiming high." She studied his expression and offered a small smile. "I'll miss you if I go far away," she admitted. "But I want to see what I can do, you know?" He nodded, swallowing the surge of emotion. "I know. I'll miss you too, but I want you to chase your dreams. You deserve every opportunity." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave me a safe place, a family. I'm not going to waste that." He squeezed her hand, recalling the day she first confided in him. Battered by abuse, overshadowed by fear. The transformation was astounding. The years soared by in a whirlwind of finals, art submissions, and college acceptance letters. Lily was accepted into a reputable program that combined fine arts and psychology, perfect for someone wanting to explore art therapy. The day she received the acceptance packet, she screamed in joy, jumping around the living room, Misty darting away in alarm. Mr. Challenger laughed, hugging her as they both teared up. "You did it," he said. "You're on your way to becoming the person you always wanted to be." As graduation approached, Lily prepared a final art portfolio showcasing her journey. One piece stood out, a large canvas depicting a small figure in a dark hallway, a door at the end open to bright sunlight. The figure's pose suggested both fear and hope. She titled it A Path to Light. On the back of the canvas, she wrote a dedication to Mr. Challenger, thanking him for opening that door. When she presented the painting at the school's senior showcase, the audience was moved to tears by her powerful story. Teachers and classmates marveled at the raw emotion in her work. She stood modestly to the side, acknowledging compliments but deflecting attention. Mr. Challenger watched from the crowd, overwhelmed by pride and love. Finally, graduation day arrived. Lily wore her cap and gown, heart pounding with both excitement and nostalgia. She lined up with fellow seniors, waiting for her name to be called. In the stands, Mr. Challenger sat among other proud families, recalling how this moment once seemed impossible for her. The principal gave a speech about resilience and triumph over adversity. Then the students walked across the stage one by one. When Lily's name was announced, applause erupted. She accepted her diploma, shaking hands with the principal, tears glistening in her eyes. She glanced at Mr. Challenger in the crowd, seeing him clap fiercely, tears shimmering on his cheeks. That look of mutual gratitude said more than words ever could. After the ceremony, father and daughter embraced, ignoring the jostle of other families celebrating. "You did it," Mr. Challenger murmured, hugging her tight. She pressed her face against his shoulder. "We did it," she corrected softly. They posed for photos, Lily grinning in her gown, diploma in hand. Mrs. Harris appeared, hugging them both. Ms. Lambert stopped by, praising Lily's achievements. Even Ms. Delgado sent a card of congratulations, though she couldn't attend in person. That evening, they returned home, Lily carefully hanging her graduation gown in her closet, the mortarboard perched on a shelf. The sense of an era ending filled the apartment, a mix of sadness and anticipation for the next chapter. They ordered takeout, flipping through photos from the ceremony. Lily laughed at some of the silly faces captured mid-hug. Then, after dinner, she retrieved one final surprise. A letter she'd written to Mr. Challenger. "I wanted to say everything I feel," she explained, handing him the envelope, cheeks pink. He opened it carefully, reading the heartfelt words of gratitude, love, and hope. She thanked him for believing her when no one else did, for giving her not just a home but a sense of worth. By the time he finished reading, tears streaked his face. He reached for her hand, voice catching. "You're my daughter," he said simply. "Always. I'm the grateful one." Summer passed in a blur of part-time jobs, farewell parties with friends, and preparations for college. Lily packed her belongings, carefully labeling boxes of art supplies and clothing. On her last night at home, they sat in the living room amidst half-sealed boxes, sipping cocoa. Lily stared at the walls she'd decorated with her paintings, reflecting on how far she'd come. "I still can't believe it sometimes," she murmured. "Everything that happened with them. And now I'm here, heading to college." Mr. Challenger placed a hand on her shoulder. "You earned every bit of it. It's okay to be proud." She nodded, a tear escaping. "I hope I can help other kids who feel alone," she whispered. "I want them to find what I found here." He smiled. "You will. Art, empathy, the example you set. You're going to change lives." The day she moved into her dorm, they hauled boxes up the stairs. Her new roommate greeted them with excitement. Lily was quiet but friendly, carefully organizing her space, tacking up a few favorite posters. Mr. Challenger lingered, offering to help set up her desk lamp. He felt a pang of emptiness at the thought of returning home without her, but he masked it with a smile. Finally, it was time for him to leave. He gave her one last hug, reminding her to call or text any time. She clutched him tight, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. "I love you, Dad." He swallowed the lump in his throat, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "I love you too, Lily." Always. Back at the now quiet apartment, he wandered through the rooms, still half expecting to see Lily's paintings in progress, or hear her laughter. Misty meowed, confused at the missing presence. He sighed, petting the cat, recalling how Lily once said this place was her safe haven. Though it felt lonely, he also felt profound pride. She was forging her own path, ready to share her light with the world. Over the next weeks, they kept in touch by phone. She shared stories of new friends, challenging art assignments, the thrill of campus life. He reminded her to take care of herself, to ask for help when needed. Occasionally, she'd mention how her past helped her empathize with classmates struggling away from home. She joined a volunteer group that worked with local foster youth, bringing art therapy sessions to children in group homes. "It feels like a small way to give back," she explained during one late-night call. He listened, heart swelling, encouraging her to keep following that passion. Meanwhile, Lily's experiences shaped her into a resilient young woman determined to break cycles of neglect and abuse. She told him about a painting she was working on for a special project, a mural at the youth center that would depict a ladder stretching from darkness into sunlight, symbolizing hope and escape. At the end of her first semester, Lily returned home for winter break, bounding into the apartment with new stories and a flush of excitement. She hugged Mr. Challenger tight, ruffling Misty's fur affectionately. The apartment felt complete again with her presence. They spent evenings catching up, cooking simple meals together, laughing over old jokes. She showed him photos of her campus friends, describing each one's quirks. He saw the glow in her eyes, the confidence in her posture. She was truly thriving. Toward the end of break, Lily asked if she could revisit Pinewood Elementary. She wanted to say hello to old teachers, maybe inspire younger students who were going through tough times. Mr. Challenger agreed happily. They walked the familiar halls, greeting staff members who remembered Lily as the shy girl who overcame so much. She visited Mrs. Harris's office, sharing how well she was doing in college. Mrs. Harris beamed, tears glistening as she hugged Lily. "I knew you'd do great things," she whispered. Before they left, Lily paused by the door of Mr. Challenger's old classroom, now occupied by a different teacher. She peered inside, recalling the day she first approached him for help. "I was so scared," she murmured. "But that's where everything changed." Mr. Challenger smiled down at her, remembering how she trembled while confessing the horrors at home. "I'm glad you trusted me," he said. She nodded, eyes distant with memory. "Me too, I guess. Sometimes it just takes one person to really listen." They walked out, father and daughter side by side, grateful for the journey that led them here. And so, Lily's life continued to unfold in a tapestry of healing and hope, her past scars giving her insight rather than defining her. Mr. Challenger watched her flourish, cherishing every milestone. Her college achievements, her blossoming friendships, her growing determination to help others through art. She, in turn, carried his unwavering kindness in her heart, remembering how he stepped in when she was lost and alone. Through it all, they remained a testament to the power of compassion, proving that a broken childhood can be mended by love, and that every child deserves the chance to feel safe, cherished, and truly home. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already and subscribe for more.